Good day and welcome to our 2018 Supermarket Tour. The members of our group are Yasmin Sayed, Shiqi Liang, and Patricia Pazzeno. We chose the Metro located on Gould Street, right on the Ryerson campus, as our subject store. We investigated the meat aisle and wanted to explore two specific topics within our tour. The first topic we want to explore surrounds issues around the meat being local or imported. And the second topic we want to look at is the meat selection available as it's driven by consumer demands. But first, let's take a look at where the meat department is and how it initially presents itself. You can see as we enter the store that the meat department is toward the back of the store. This reflects the fact that meat is considered, in the mainstream Canadian diet, to be an essential component, and thus it is located on the perimeter of the store. We managed to not get sidetracked by the cereal in the aisle leading to the back, but were instead enticed by the large "Fresh" sign visible from the front of the store. Rounding the corner, we see the "Fresh Meat" sign and are overwhelmed by the abundance of meat in front of us. All kinds, large portions, small portions, seasoned, fresh, halal, organic. The choice was seemingly endless. But where has all this meat come from? Looking at the labels, it is difficult to tell if the meat is local or imported. In fact, on the labels is really only a health warning on how to cook the meat. Notice the insinuation that the customer or the consumer is at fault if someone falls ill, some recipe suggestions, and pricing information, but nothing on the origin of the meat. So let's look instead at Metro as a company and their commitment to local versus imported meat. Metro is one of the top 10 grocery chains in the country with annual sales of $16 billion. Their procurement strategy outlines that they will purchase local whenever possible, purchase fair trade when possible, and in regards to the meat category, they commit to consideration for the needs of livestock and the prevention of all forms of animal abuse. In addition, they endeavor to ensure that these procurement standards are adopted by all suppliers. Metro has a commitment to work with both regional and provincial suppliers through Foodland Ontario. But really, what is local? Is it within a certain kilometer distance? Within a certain time limit for the meat to arrive? The very definition of local is ambiguous. The Canadian Meat Tracking System involves tracking individual animals with a radio frequency identification tag before it leaves the farm where it was born. That tag assigns a unique identification number that's entered into a database and gives information on things like sex, breed, birth date, and location. Careful track is kept to the abattoir where it is slaughtered, and the tag is then retired. However, once past the abattoir, the meat may be shipped nationally or internationally and is much more difficult to track. So we need to trust Metro that the partners they are working with at Foodland Ontario are truly local, whatever that actually means. In Europe, meat is much easier to trace back to the farm given its shorter supply chain and a higher consumer demand to know the origin of the meat. In Japan, all animals are assigned a 10-digit ID number, which consumers can enter into a government website to track exactly where their meat has originated from. These tracking systems are expensive to implement, and consumers will bear the cost. However, statistics show that as meat prices increase, consumption decreases. Or, as the head of Metro, Eric Laflache, has commented that as meat prices increase, consumer consumption has adjusted. Canadians value cheap food, and thus it is unlikely that any tracking system will make significant headway. When we started the supermarket tour, one of the areas we wanted to explore was the percentage of local versus imported meat. We wanted to see how straightforward this would be to assess, if there was an impact on price, what that price difference would be, and what the impact of the price of local versus imported food would potentially have on consumption patterns. So our other questions surrounding how local versus imported food affected price actually couldn't be answered. With no ability to discern where the meat came from, there was no price difference. Therefore, the questions about whether the price difference would impact consumption could not be addressed, nor could we answer whether people would purchase local food versus imported regardless of price. Basically, if you want to know where your food comes from in regards to meat, you need to go to the St. Lawrence market and buy directly from one of the producers. The second topic we wanted to think about was the variety or offerings available at the meat counter. Certainly, there was a large range of different types of meat: pre-seasoned, halal, organic, ready to serve, barbecue, antibiotic-free, and GMO-free. We feel that variety is certainly influenced by the demographics of the area. Toronto is a multicultural city reflecting a wide diversity of both ethnicities and religions. In addition, this metro is located close to universities and colleges: Ryerson University, George Brown, and U of T. Students are not necessarily known for their culinary endeavors, unless they're in the George Brown culinary program. They often have either no interest in cooking or they don't have the skills to cook. Therefore, it makes sense why we see the variety of ready-to-serve, almost convenience-type foods. The categories of antibiotic and GMO-free are intriguing. This reflects the power of the consumer to demand products that mirror their personal beliefs and health demands. Regardless of whether Metro really supports antibiotic or GMO-free meat, they will offer it as a way to capture more of the market. That said, there are clear price differences between these categories, with organic, GMO-free, and antibiotic meat demanding a premium versus pre-seasoned meat that is merely a convenience item. The prior categories have higher input costs that trickle down to the consumer. As mentioned previously, the price can influence the consumer pattern. So what did we learn from the supermarket tour? Well, I think we went into it with an expectation that if we asked, we would be able to find out where our food came from. We just made that assumption. And what we quickly found out is that indeed, especially with meat, is not the case. So what it would change for me personally is that I think I will be purchasing my meat from smaller producers or direct from the farm, so I know exactly where that product is coming from. The other thing that really struck us was the power of the consumer. So 10 years ago, you would never have seen antibiotic-free or GMO-free food categories. And yet clearly that is something that has come as a consumer demand. And so it just reminds us that even though we think, oh, our voice is just one, it actually isn't. If we bind together and we work as a group, we can implement changes into the food system and get not only products that we want, but make the system safer and better for all of us. We just need to work hard at it. So those were the things that we took away from the supermarket tour. Thanks so much.